What's up, and welcome to Crazy Ira and the Dude. We're here to talk about your mom
Mm.
and your mom's butt.
That's
I'm
right, the
at.
douche. That's right. I'm crazy, Ira. I'm taking it.
I gotta be named the douche. That can be me. But no, I'm Matt,
I'm Brian.
and we're actually here to talk about TV because we're the TV guys. We're awesome. What can I say?
I don't have a quick comeback to
you,
that.
you don't. Well, we're going to talk about some of the best side characters of the show Parks and Rec. The start of this podcast are the words that I am saying now. I was trying to think of another thing that I could do where I would suddenly start screaming at you like Craig, but I have sleeping kids, so you know.
Yeah. So commit to the bit.
I know I can't do it. I'm not good enough. All right. Well, hey, we're going to talk about the top three side characters. So our qualifications for this is anyone that is not main character in credits, and I mean that includes characters like Donna, who at the very end of the show she made it as a series regular in the last
Yeah.
couple of seasons.
Yeah, her and Jerry both.
Yep. Jerry's a good one. I like Jerry a lot.
Yeah.
He's a good character.
Well, Donna and Jerry were kind of a pet peeve. I like the characters, but they were series regulars for a while before then. But it was they had the theme song with everybody else, and then at the beginning it would say starring Retta and Jim O'Hare. But they didn't get to be in like the pictured in the main cast until Rob Lowe and Rashida Jones left.
And they were like, we can fill this up. It's really funny when Rob Lowe and is Adam Scott, I think his name is, when they
Yeah.
joined the one, they're like, we can make room for you guys. Plus, we have to get Mark out of here.
Yeah.
And then they kept that intro the same for like 4 seasons,
Yeah.
and then they're like, oh, we have to change it. All right, I guess we can put you guys in here. We're pushing it off. We were lazy,
Do you
but
think we'll ever talk about Parks and Rec without subtly or not so subtly bashing Mark?
I don't think so. That's like a prerequisite. He was so bad of this show. The only like his funniest part was like one of the first few episodes, like episode 3 or whatever, when they're going to door to door to get support for the park, and
Yeah.
then there is the guy who he's asking all these. I'm sorry, he's asking all these questions about kids and like, oh, they're gonna be a bunch of kids. They're like, yeah, how old are your kids? Oh, I don't have kids. And he's like, nope. And they just kind of backed away from him.
Well, and I think he also like put April behind him because I think she was still
Yeah,
underage at that point.
that was my favorite Mark moment.
Yeah. So real quick with Parks and Rec, we've said this before. It's a kind of a rough beginning with Parks and Rec. I definitely recommend if you haven't seen it, you want to get into it, start with season 3 because that's when Adam Scott and Rob Lowe join the cast makes a big difference. And even the first episode of season 3 starts with a recap. It says, "Hey, here's the characters. It's Leslie and all these people," and that's when the show really hits its stride and is at its funniest. There are a few select episodes in the first 2 seasons that are great, but overall, it's remarkable shift in quality starting with season 3.
Yep. So I mean, if you start in season 1 and then you think this is a dumb show and you turn it off, straight to jail right away.
Yep. We might shoot you in the back of your head, even though you love the back of your head. You'd never shoot yourself there.
That's a good episode too.
Yeah.
Bule bule.
Is
All right.
this?
Well,
Yeah.
what?
When Ron's listening to Turkey Calls, is this not rap?
I'm sorry, I was angry. A moron shot me in the back of the head. This is a great show. We're gonna have fun. We've got some. I have 5 characters that I had thought of, and it's like I've got my top 3. It was really hard to narrow it down, but I think I did it. And I'm gonna have you go first because we can't start at number 3 with a character who deserves to kind of be saved for last, even though he's my number
Okay.
3. So
Gotcha. Okay. I'll start out with a pick you might not be expecting. I'm going to go with Barney the accountant.
nice. That was one of my honorable mentions. He almost made my list. I love Barney.
I love Barney because like at first he was just like a boring one-off character in that episode where everyone's trying to pitch their classes to keep when the parks department's got to cut some classes. But then I really found this funny dynamic with him being so obsessed with Ben, and every time he hires Ben for one reason or another, Ben has to quit. And it's just this guy. Like I can't imagine what his life is like because his whole personality is obsession with Ben and obsession with being an accountant. That's it.
Yeah.
And just his giddiness at these dumb puns when Ben's like calculator, and then it's like there's a beat, and then Ted, Ted, come in here, say it, say it to Ted.
That's a great Barney. I appreciate you committing to your bit.
Yeah.
There's a couple reasons why Barney works so well because you're right. The running gag of him always having to quit when they hire him, that's
Mm-hmm.
a funny gag in and of itself. But it's amplified by the fact that Ben is such a like loser nerdy character, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so obvious he is. If he went to high school with this group, he would be the outcast and made fun of and picked on because that's
Yeah.
what his past was. But in the accounting world, he's James Bond. He's
Yeah.
like super cool. So him being in this element and him being the cool guy is a really funny way to change the dynamic of his relationship.
Yeah. They even had their version of like the gang face off when he goes and he's doing some consulting with him, and they have that other guy, Frank, and Frank's like, I've heard a lot about you. Show us what you got. And like Frank's just all about, and then I forget what the whole thing was, but Ben figured it out, and then it's like, dang, this guy is good.
Yeah. Yeah, he showed it. He's like, I got the medal for this, man. I can bring it. I was gonna say Barney's also, as you hit it, his over the top reaction to the jokes. The actor really sells it well to the point that
Mm-hmm.
like that specific style of just laughing too much at a joke, it can fall flat. And
Mm-hmm.
I never felt like it did with him because of the
No.
way he acted.
Yeah, and I also like the little sweet moment they had with them later, where, as a parting gift, Ben gives them the Cones of Dunshire game, and then later on, you find out that they took it and copyrighted it in Ben's name, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that he gave them the game. I call Ledgerman. Oh man. Yeah, I actually have a shirt, a Cones of Dunshire shirt. I've been asked a couple times, like, "Oh, what's Cones of Dunshire?" And I'm like, "You wouldn't get it, man. You
Is
wouldn't
Cone
get it.
has Cones of Dunshire been made into an actual playable game?
Not that I'm aware of."
Okay.
I think it's too ridiculous from like just a little bit we've seen of it on screen. I think
Yeah.
it's too ridiculous to even make it in the board game community because I am a big board game guy. I don't think that that's hard to believe,
No.
but I love the game like worker placement games where it's like this sounds like the dumbest concept in the world, but it's actually really fun.
Hmm.
And even I think that would probably be a hard sell, despite the appeal of the nostalgia that comes with Parks and Rec. So,
Yeah.
all right. Hey, I've got a number three, don't I?
Yeah,
All
you
right.
do.
So my number three was the guy that worked for Barney for all of like 5 minutes. No, not even that. 1 minute. He
Yep.
made his way around the office and then got fired. And this guy deserves so much more build up than we're giving him.
Oh,
But he ended up
definitely.
at my number three, and that's John Ralphio. I love John Ralphio. He was another character that probably was going to be a one-off, maybe like one or two appearances as Tom's
Yeah.
friend. But just the way that he brought like this energy and this
Yeah.
fun that was untamable. Yeah, he was full of himself. Yeah, he's annoying, but he's not annoying in the off-putting way. He's annoying in that this guy is hilarious. What the heck is he going to do next sort of way.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought him up because I was gonna weasel into talking about him briefly at the end, but I couldn't make him one of my tops because even though he's technically not a regular, especially towards the end, he more or less might be a regular. They even give him his own what happens in the future in the finale. But I don't know where I don't know where you even start. That scene of him and Barney is a great scene of John Ralphio's.
He's a great foil for Tom because he is Tom if Tom continues to make bad decisions. And they actually realized that at a certain point and allowed that to be what helps Tom become a better character and a better
Mhm.
person. So in terms of story structure, he works fantastically in that regard.
Mm.
In terms of comedy, man, so I got hit by Alexis. Like how he just sings at the weirdest, stupidest time.
Yeah. It's like, my sister, she's the worst.
I like that specific one because I don't remember who he's singing that to. I think it's Ben. And like that person just recoils so much, like all over them, singing with the hand behind his
Well,
mouth.
in it's like a tiny little moment in one of the best episodes when they're all at the Snake Hole Lounge and Leslie and Anne are fighting, and Anne goes off to dance, like revenge dance with, I think, the douche. Leslie's just like, John Ralphio, dance upon me, and he doesn't hesitate. He's like, yes, yes. He's like,
he's he would he would be simultaneously a great and terrible friend at the
oh
same
yeah,
time. Like you need a hype man, you're gonna get a
yeah.
hype man out of him. But if you need someone you can depend on, he's not that.
He'll tell you to turn that frizz down upside disney.
Yeah, he's so much fun, and he has so much meat to his character. Like you said, he's in a lot more than just some of the other picks on our list. So he needed to be on here.
So interesting thing about John Ralphio, he was one of the guys who did, I think it was him and one other guy did the screeching voices for BB-8 in the Star Wars sequels.
That's right. And the other guy was Bill Hader. Bill Hader is like he's a classic voice actor. He's like the new Mel Blanc. He's in so much that you don't even recognize. He was a Fear in Inside Out. He's probably been in like 3 or 4 Pixar movies. But also, it's funny some of the guys that they reuse over and over, like Alan Tudyk in every Disney animated film now.
I think the new Mel Blanc is Frank Welker, who's still working to this day.
There's some really good people you can bring up, like Jim Cummings is another great classic voice actor. More common is Billy West. He's another one who does a lot. Definitely. I mean, he even does some Looney Tune characters. So
yeah, Katie Seagal is another good one.
Yeah. Let's just name all the Futurama cast. All right, so that's my number 3, John Ralphio. I don't know how he navigated away, but John Ralphio, he's number 3.
Number 2 is a number, and it is a number that I'm speaking right now. My number 2 is Purred Happily. When you did that bit earlier, I'm like, you stole my bit.
I did. I'm sorry. I had both Ira and the douche and Purred. Just mix them in.
Well, Ira and the douche are not on my list. I'm not sure if I stole Purred Happily from you.
No, you didn't. I thought about him, and then I'm like, I don't know. I've got too many others that are competing. So,
Purred Happily is a gag that on paper shouldn't work. It shouldn't work ongoing, but it really does, because his whole thing is he's a newscaster, but he's not interesting at all, and all he does is restate things. I don't know. How do you say what he does? He just states the obvious.
Yeah, he both states the obvious, but the way he phrases things is the worst. It's the worst possible way you can mix up words to create a sentence.
Yeah. Like one of the best moments to kind of define Purred is when Anne finally breaks down and asks Chris to be her sperm donor, and she does it right in front of Purred Happily, and he's like, the story of this conversation is it's extremely personal.
I think it was during the campaign when Leslie and Catherine Hahn's character, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, when they were on the show, and Purd says something. He asks this question, and he asks it in terrible Purd fashion. And I think the campaign manager's like, "Thank you, Purd. Well put." And then she answers,
of course.
Like anything but.
And anytime there's something going on, he's so easy to put into anything, because he can just be narrating about what's going on, because this town is so small. You wouldn't think the Parks and Recreation Department would be such high news, but it's like you watch a show, you realize everybody knows what this town's Parks and Recreation Department is doing. They all go to the town meetings and yell at everybody. All of their stuff is in the news. Like, I couldn't tell you anyone who works in any of the city government of any city I've ever lived in.
I can, because first of all, I worked for a newspaper when I first got here for several years. And then also it's a small town. So plus I'm related to someone who works for the city, your sister-in-law's dad, he works for our city. So.
Oh yeah. He's a fireman, right?
He does do volunteer firefighter. He's also public works.
Oh,
that dude wears so many hats. Seriously.
I don't know what else to say about Purd Happily, but I mean, I think it's short and sweet, but that's just how Purd is.
He is so much better than Joan. Joan's one of those characters that a little bit goes a long way from me.
Yeah,
And so I'm not too much into her
not
character.
really.
I really enjoy Purd.
I loved the scene of Joan when Joan is passed out and then Ron took over the show, but that was funny more so because of Ron.
Exactly. Yeah, Ron made that work, but not her. That you're right. Moment. All right, my number two is such a great actor, an actor that is so hard to dislike, and he brings the charm of making it so hard to dislike him into his character. And the arc that he had was a lot of fun, and that was Bobby Newport,
As soon as
played
you were
by Paul
describing
Rudd.
it, I knew who you were talking about. Yeah.
It's so hard to not pick Paul Rudd. He is such a lovable guy.
Mm-hmm.
He is so funny in everything that he is in.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the season five, I want to say, I think it's season five, that
Sounds
Leslie
right.
runs for city council, and she's running against Bobby Newport, and Bobby is this entitled, but he's completely naive. So it's like perfectly played by Paul Rudd. But
Mm-hmm.
he like thinks his dad, because his dad is the richest guy in town, his dad is pretty much buying him the city council seat. And
Yeah.
it's pretty close to that. That's essentially what they're trying to do. And so it's a great arc for Leslie to with Leslie's character, she's clearly and obviously the best pick for the job that she's running for.
Yeah.
So the writers had to be like, what's someone that we can bring in to be a foil for her, but to not make it annoying? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
make it about the work ethic, that's not going to go over well.
Yeah.
Instead, they about the entitlement, and it was a really good arc.
Well, and even though it was entitlement, they managed to make him like her villain, the foil, without making him unlikable, because
Yep.
he didn't care about his entitlement. He didn't think he was better. He didn't know what was going on half the time, or more than half the time actually. And he was the villain because there were other people pulling the strings, making him the villain. And
Yeah.
every time he opened his mouth, you realize he's like just like a dumb puppy who doesn't know how the world works. He's like, doesn't everybody have rich dads? I mean, he doesn't say that, but that's basically like what he acts like.
Catherine Hahn's character for that arc was also fantastic, but she was the same way, that you didn't really hate her. You kind of you respected the game, because what she did was like, it's not personal. This is my job, and
Yeah.
I'm really really good at my job. And that, having both of those dynamics, where Leslie was facing this brain dead incompetent guy and
Mhm.
this extremely incompetent but nice, likable person,
Yeah.
like that she had to go against. That was a really good dynamic.
Yeah. And one little tidbit about Paul Rudd. So, they had this earlier this year, or no, last year, they did like a Parks and Rec pandemic reunion where they're all on Zoom. And in the very beginning, you see Bobby Newport doing the intro, and he's wearing a Nope 2012 jacket. He's wearing the jacket of his opponent. That apparently wasn't originally scripted. Paul Rudd got that as like a gift for being in the season. And when they were about to film, he was actually out at like his family's cabin or whatever in real life. And he happened to have the jacket. He's like, what if I wear this jacket? And they're like, yes, do that.
Why did you even say what if? This is what needs to happen. Wear this.
Exactly.
So that's my number two. Great arc, great character, and great actor, of course.
Well, my number one, actually, I was going to cheat, but you allowed me to not cheat. I was going to cheat and do Bobby Newport and Jen Barkley as a duo.
Perfect.
So, yeah, you mentioned her a little bit, Catherine Hahn, who you recently saw as Agatha Harkness / Agnes on WandaVision, was on Parks and Rec as Jennifer Barkley. And as we said during the campaign, she was like the villain in a sense, because she was the one who actually knew what she was doing, trying to get Bobby Newport elected. And
yeah,
like,
it was
she was
Agatha all along.
Exactly. It was Jen. It doesn't really fit.
No, she was pulling Ant-Man's strings.
Exactly. Oh yeah, they're both in Marvel movies.
They are.
Well, she's not in a movie yet, but I'm sure she will be.
And meanwhile, Star-Lord's just running around.
Oh yeah, this is a lot of Marvel connections to Parks and Rec.
But at the same time, Marvel is like a freaking giant. So,
anyways, she just has so many moments because for her, it's not personal. She personally doesn't give two cares if either of them wins, but she's been paid like an insane amount of money to make this happen, and so she's like, well, I get paid to make people win, so I'm going to make him win. And she is one step ahead of Leslie at every turn. Like at one point, they're going to be cutting funding from the vet clinic or from the shelter they had to or something, and then she goes on the air and tells everybody that all the dogs are going to be killed because of Leslie, and she gets like this beautiful, cute puppy. Like, Leslie Nope's gonna kill you. And they're like, ah, dang, they got the perfect puppy for that shot. And then later on, she comes back and she's working with Ben and Leslie because once she's out from under the paycheck of the Newport family, she's like, well, I can actually work with you guys. You guys know what you're doing, so let me work with you, even though I was trying to destroy you 2 seasons ago.
Yeah. I her line at the end of that season as she's going, and I don't remember the exact line, but I really liked how she presented it of like, look at what I did with this guy. Can you imagine what it would be like with someone who knows what they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Someone who's actually like I can endorse.
Yeah. And I gotta say, the best moment of Jen Barkley is just one word. It's in the last season when Ben and Leslie have kids, and she's going on of how like her life is so great because she doesn't have kids and she can do whatever she wants. And she's like, "Your house is disgusting. Everything is wet and messy all the time." And so she comes in wearing a rain poncho because like, well, every time I come here, there's some stain gets on me. And then one of Leslie and Ben's kids, runs past them with a paintbrush, and it gets all over the poncho, and she just goes, "Poncho!" And like shows like I was right because I wore this poncho to protect my clothes from your children.
Yeah, that is the life of having small children. We've
Yeah.
got we've got four of them under the age of 10. So
Well, I'll tell you, at least up to the age of 14, it doesn't really change much.
yeah, I think that when they're teenagers, unless they're neat and clean, then it's the same way, but in a completely different way. Where it's like they
Yeah.
walk into the room and all of a sudden everything's on the floor.
Yeah. I was a weird teenager where I was always neat. One time I actually trashed my room purposely for the sole purpose of I could videotape myself cleaning it and then put it in fast motion.
That is my favorite tidbit I have ever learned about you.
And I think that video of me doing that is still on YouTube. Maybe when we post this episode, I'll post the link so people can go watch it.
The fact that you're like sharing it with all of us, and that I think there's still a little bit of pride in your voice about it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, Brian, you are something. All right, my number one is also a duo, and so even if you would have said both of them, that's completely fine because mine, they're two characters that are one. They're one character,
Oh, I
and
think
it's
I know who you're
Harris
talking
and
about.
Brett,
Yep, Harrison Brett.
the animal control guys. Those guys are so freaking funny. You're introduced to them in the possum episode, and they're pretty fun in the possum episode. But then there's another one when they're going through and they're like making budget cuts, and they're looking at the different departments, and so they go to the animal control department, and you get a behind the scenes of what's going on in animal control. And one of my favorite things is like they've got this bird on the wall, and he's like, we just pull his tail like the Flintstones. We think that that's going to let us leave, and then they pull his tail. Like, no, he's dead. His bird's dead.
And they're giving the tour, and part of their tour is like, here's Napkin, where I thought of a cool name for a dog, Bark Obama.
There's I don't know, a possum or something right over there, and that whole scene was so freaking funny. And one of the guys, I don't remember which one, but one of them is a writer for the show, and so he gets to bring that same energy into
I think that
his
was
acting.
Harris, and I think he
think you're
actually
right.
died in real life.
Yeah, he died. One of them was who the writer was died. You're right, and
Well, that has to be
he was
Harris,
pretty
yeah.
young.
Because Brett was on Superstore, and it was that show just ended. So
It's hard. It's kind of like Abbott and Costello. I always have to be like, wait, which one is which again? Which?
well, the reason I remember it is they're saying like they're calling each other by their name, and then Leslie says their name, and someone's like, well, "How'd you know what my name was?" or something like that.
See, they're like so stupid of characters, but their stupidity, it's funny for this show. It's completely unrealistic. It's completely over the top, but their energy in it is great. The energy they bring to it. I like at Andy and April's wedding. One of them is they're sitting there like talking to Ben. Is like, yo, what's the deal with that girl over there? She down to clown? Is like that girl, the one who just got married. Oh, she's the girl from that thing. Yes, the wedding we just witnessed. She's the girl from that thing.
Those guys are only in a handful of episodes. Probably not even just a couple, but it makes such a lasting impression that
Yeah.
And then after they get fired, they both come in to apply for the job they just got fired from.
Yeah, and then they see each other in the waiting room. Like, man, what are you doing here?
Like, man, we live in the same place.
Eh, they're a great duo. They're my favorite, and I wish we would have gotten a little bit more of them. But I
Mhm.
feel like if we would have, it's possible it could have ruined their characters. We probably only had the right amount of these guys.
Exactly. What I love about the show is the town meetings because
Yeah,
there's like a collection of characters who stick out. Kind of like this is my nerdiness coming out again, but you know, like in SpongeBob, whenever there's a mob of people, there's always that one voice that says "my leg."
I don't watch SpongeBob.
Oh, it's just a weird little detail. Whenever there's a mob of people screaming, and always listen. There's always one. It's the same voice saying over and over again, or saying every time, "My leg." And this version, Parks and Rec's versions of "My leg," we have. Some of these guys have names, but I don't remember. The guy with the mustache who just is belligerently screaming all the time, and
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
"You were screaming, you suck." At a game, it's like you were screaming it at like 5-year-old girls who suck. Why doesn't anyone understand that? And then there's the big annoying chanting guy who's always starting chants like, we should
I
all
like
go home
him.
and eat ham and mayonnaise sandwiches. Ham and mayonnaise. Ham and mayonnaise.
And then there's like the giant like biker guy who
Oh yeah.
he bought that guitar at the auction
Yeah.
and then erased the autograph on it.
And then he also runs the pawn shop, and when they're trying to find potentially rings for Leslie's wedding, he's like, be careful with those used to be nipple rings. Like, how did you know? He looks like, oh, they were his. Let's just drop those.
Yeah, I like the I don't that's just a funny gag to me. Just always creating chants.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my favorite of his chants though is he's saying, "Oh, this book is dumb. Well, my daughter loved it. Your daughter is an idiot. Your daughter is an idiot." Like,
I don't. My favorite of his was the one where they're like on Nope's side all of a sudden.
oh yeah,
It's like, you're
oh
not
yeah.
against me on this? And he's like, we're not against you on this. And then turns around, starts to chant, we're not against you on this. We're not against you on this.
You know, now that I think about it, this would also be a fun. We did our episode about places that would be fun to live in. I think the Parks and Rec world. I wouldn't want to permanently live in there, but I wouldn't mind just like taking a weekend vacation in Pawnee and like going to some of these meetings and just being a fly on the wall.
I really would like to honeymoon in Muncie.
Yeah, catch a mouse rat concert.
We all fairly in the pit. One of the guys that I wanted to bring up to, I know some people like I've talked to and they're like, I can't stand him. And I guess I get it. I don't know, but I think he's hilarious. I love Craig.
Mm-hmm.
I like his go from 0 to 100
Yeah.
style of like, and then one of them, I think it was with Tom, where he starts off like he's in a meeting and he starts like whispering, and by the end of his sentence, screaming, and Tom's like, "You can't do that. You can't start with a whisper." And it was screaming in my ear.
Yeah. Well, at one point he says, "Yes, I have a condition. It's called caring too much, and it's incurable."
Billy Eichner, his face as he does that is just tremendous. He's got a great voice for it and a great facial expression.
Mm-hmm. Although technically in the last season he was a regular. He was never listed like pictured in the cast, but kind of like how Donna and Jerry were. Like afterwards,
Yeah.
is a starring Billy Eichner.
Well, good thing he's not officially on my list then, Mister List Nazi.
There's also this little known character, Leslie Knope. Have you seen an episode with her in it?
Jeez. Hey, don't you have to go mess up a room and then videotape yourself cleaning it?
I could.
You could. Yeah. You got the material for it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, there are so many good characters. I know we missed a number of them that we just didn't have time to talk about.
What about this background guy?
That guy, he makes a reappearance. Brian has again used the background with him in the background. But that's a terrible background character. I brought him up earlier. Oh, I forgot. I was going to bring him up. I brought him up earlier, but the dignitary from Venezuela,
Oh yeah.
city, Fred Armisen. That was a great one-off for his character. A lot of fun. I enjoyed that episode. One of the best ones of season 2.
That I said that and the hunting episode are the two best ones pre-season 3.
Yep, I agree. But hey, you let us know. We have Facebook. We have a Twitter, which is TV Guys One, and we have an email address that Brian knows.
I was just gonna say, do you know it? tvguyspodcast@gmail.com.
Wow, that was me saying it, and I did my Brian impersonation just then. Did it sound good? I hope it sounded good. Let's go into trivia.
Let's do it.
I don't remember. Oh,
that's right.
It was yours.
I forgot. I was waiting because you're doing the trivia, and I forgot that we have to read last week's trivia.
We do.
So last week I talked about Matt's favorite show, Gilmore Girls, and how there's a guy behind the scenes who really helped them work on the script, and that guy is George Anthony Bell, who I knew as Principal Wexler on Even Stevens.
You say it like you knew him in person. Like he was my good buddy, Principal Wexler.
George.
We hung out a lot. This week's, I think it's possible we've brought this up before because we've talked about Parks and Rec before, and I think I might have brought up this little tidbit. But if I haven't, or even if I have, too bad. You get rewarded for watching the show or listening to us. So there was a movie that they changed locations to film Parks and Rec in order to accommodate that movie. There we go. So what movie was it that they had to change locations for their filming in order to accommodate that movie?
I believe we have talked about this on the podcast. So if you've been listening, you should know this.
Yeah, I think we brought it up before. Yeah. And it was a really fun tidbit that I learned when I was watching. I'm like, oh, hey, that's cool.
How you know what? Since you have one that we've talked about before, here's another bonus trivia question. So Ben Schwartz, who plays John Ralphio, is related to a guy from what Netflix show?
None of them. He's not related to anyone. He's related to himself from Space Force. All right.
If you're just now joining us, in one of our earlier episodes,
you say that like they were watching something and then flipped over the podcast. I'm like, I'm going to jump to the end. I just want to hear how it ends.
We never know. We could have podcast listeners who found us after that episode. One of Matt's trivia questions was that he thought that Ben Schwartz was related to one of the guys from Stranger Things, and then found out that was incorrect.
It's an easy mistake to make. And the fact that so many other people on the internet have thought that and made that mistake, and that they had TV commercials together, shows me that it's a common mistake to make.
There, you heard it from Matt. It's okay to believe things as long as people on the internet believe it.
Exactly. Thank you. At least I'm not confusing Daniel Radcliffe and Elijah Wood, which apparently happens a lot too. They look kind of similar. They look similar enough, but I think it's mainly because of like the series were on at the same time. So having Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter exist simultaneously, and just remembering that one of them was the main guy of one, the other was the main guy of the other. I think that's where they get it from.
I get that. I was going to tell them what we're doing next week, but I lost it for a second.
Next week, we are doing what is really common nowadays, and that is taking a trip backwards into nostalgia territory. So Brian and I, we're going to talk about some of our shows we grew up with. Maybe we might do it as top 3. Maybe we might just like spitfire and talk about a bunch of them. So we're going to talk about some shows because we love our childhood, and they might be shows that you loved as kids too. So tune in.
Yep. And just based on our ages, we talked about this earlier, that most of our shows are going to be probably camped out in the 90s. So if you want to hear about some great 90s kids shows, then tune in next week.
Yeah. Hey, you millennials, this is the episode for you. Boomers, get out of here. Zers, what are you even doing? Sorry. Although Gen Zers are probably seeing as podcasts are really popular with Gen Z more than any other. Maybe I shouldn't alienate our entire listener base. I don't know. Well,
Gen Z watching 90 shows is like you watching Gilligan's Island. It could happen.
I did watch Gilligan's Island. I watch a lot of TV Land shows. So like I watched Green Acres and Brady Bunch and Carol Burnett and Flip Wilson, and could go on and on. I've seen a bunch of episodes of all those.
Yeah, my window into like celebrities from before my time was actually the Muppet Show, because all those celebrities are people who were big back in the 70s. In fact, I was playing a board game with my sister and her husband and my niece, and it's that board game we played with you, Matt, where you're jumping through the different generations.
I figured that'd be it.
Yeah, and they're stuck on my sister and her husband were stuck on Boomer music, and I was reading the questions, they kept getting stuck, but I knew the answers because almost every question. I was like, well, I knew that because that was a Muppet Show guest star. Oh, yep, that was another Muppet Show guest star.
It doesn't matter how I know it. I just know it. Okay, stop asking. Jeez.
Exactly.
Well, that's next week, so it'll be great. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We are hitting May, guys. We are 4 months into the year, so we will see you probably next month with a new episode. And until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
We're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.